This season was amazing. It had the best rendition of the Dark Phoenix saga I ever saw. And no, I'm not talking about X-Men, I'm talking about Strange Things. Welcome to the heart of the stories we tell. My name is Rob, and tonight I will be reviewing the final 3 episodes of Stranger Things Season 2. And I don't know what I was thinking earlier. I kept saying that it was about finding your place in the world, but it's also an allegory for finding your place in your D&D party. And they've said it so many times I don't know how it went over my head. I'm just going to say I'm sleep deprived. Because you see, there's tanks, and there's DPS, and there's controllers, and someone's always got to be the big damn hero. For those of you that don't know, what I do here is I take apart and reconstruct stories and figure out what they mean and how they go about telling them. I do this weekly, and I do this as stories come up. If that sounds interesting to you, click that subscribe button. Now, 11 says something in the very first episode. In fact, the entire first episode of this grouping is an L story. So, I have to say that it's pretty amazing. But we kind of get taken out of the main story in order to be put into a side story, and that's what really clicked in my head. Remember when I said up top the best Dark Phoenix saga I ever saw? Well, let's get into it. Let's go and unpack what this is all about and start talking about it. So once again, it's stop. Spoiler time. Elle and the other psychics are pretty much just mutants. They're X-Men by any other name. Now, of course, throwing her into a more realistic setting, mostly, does change things a bit, but she's still just a badass telepath telekinetic. Let's start right with Chapter 6. Okay, The Lost Sister, aka My Dark Phoenix Saga. When they were describing Elle earlier, they said she was the mage, but she's really the psychic, much like Jean Grey. Now, the Dark Phoenix Saga is all about Jean Grey growing up, realizing she has a dark side, realizing that her powers can be used to kill, but then still taking control of herself enough to, in the end, win back herself. And by the way, the main antagonist of this is someone that can create mental illusions. So now you should be able to see the parallels relatively easily. And those parallels were really good. Like I said, this might be the best rendition of the Dark Phoenix saga I've ever seen. Better than the X-Men cartoon in the 90s, much better than the third X-Men movie. But there is an X-Men movie doing it shortly, so we're going to hold out hope here. Elle is on her way home, though, is the end of the episode. It's really an entire aside, finding out where she was, and part of this is to introduce the concept that the guy in charge might still be alive, and part of this was really a let's move Elle to where she'll be helpful in the final battles. We needed to keep her off the field for a little while because everyone needed to have problems that she could easily solve. But now she's going to come back, and I'm hoping that the next episode, which looks like it's got a really cool name too, is going to be all about reuniting everyone. Get everyone back on the same page for one big spectacular finish. But I'll let you know that after I watch it. So, without further ado, up next is Chapter 8, The Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer is another D&Dism, another little aside for the D&D fans out there. The Illithid, the Mind Eaters. These alien aberrations have tentacles, are one part Cthulhu monster and one part psychic menace. They can psychic blast you into being unconscious or just stunned, and they can eat your brain by extracting it right out of your head. They're pretty horrifying, and most D&D players don't want to face one. Going into this episode, what I was expecting was Hopper to be the hero until 11 got there to save the day. I mean, realistically, what we had going into this episode was a group of demigorgons running around, and I did know that the three running around on the railroad tracks might also show up and have a heroic moment, but I was dead wrong, because 5 minutes into the episode, the superhero was Bob. Oh my god, between Bob and the Doctor, they totally blew me away with just normal people stepping up. I loved when Bob said, how about I just teach you French? Because, it's a whole nother language. But better still was what he told Hopper right before Hopper and him split ways. When I get it on, you don't wait for me. You get them out. Can we all just take a moment to remember Bob the superhero? The everyday man, the person who worked at Radio Shack who sacrificed himself just so that the main cast could get away. But then we finally get to the meaning of the name of the episode, and the last one too, because the spy, another encoded transmission. And I do think that it was rather well done. The entire idea of, well, the thing that's controlling me is making me speak. It's not noticing what my hand's doing. Of course, then the Demo Dogs came, and it looked like everything was about to get effed up. In fact, I loved the scene with the, can you use this? No, I can. Everything was great. Everyone was ready. I mean, they were ready to die because there's nothing that can beat those things. Just like I more than a little laughed at the whole idea of calling in the military. I mean, how do you fight those things? Well, of course, by the end of the episode, we have that answer. And it's the answer we knew from the beginning of the season. There's one person who has fought a Demogorgon and won. And she comes back like a badass, throwing the Demodog, they call them now, through the window. I loved everyone just lowering the thing. I just wish that the episode had actually ended with Mike running up and giving her a hug. I really kind of wanted that, and I assume that's where the next episode's going to begin. But everyone's back together. We have a new character or two that we need to introduce to each other. But for the most part, we're all together. And of course, we're ready for the rematch from hell. The Upside Down's going to be turned inside out as we close the portal. Because Elle's back. And more badass than ever. And I really like the kind of goth punk outfit on her. It really suits her better than the curly hair that I just wasn't feeling. I know I don't talk about like fashion stuff much, and I'm not one for how hair looks, but it does look much better this way. Chapter 9, The Gate. And yes, it did begin exactly as I thought it did with the hug. But for all the heartfelt welcome backs that Elle got, the hug between Mike and Hopper really set the scene the best. All season, we've been thinking about how interpersonal relationships go. But like Hopper said, don't blame her. Mike says he doesn't blame her, he blames him. And Hopper's okay with that, because our sheriff understands that sometimes it's okay to be mad at someone, and it's okay to be a jerk or do the wrong thing. But it's not okay to take it out on a little kid like Elle, Jane. And I'm just going to say that the whole show is awesome. I still have the Dark Phoenix references, even in this episode, especially with the goodbye that was almost a kiss. But I have to call out one scene. Hopper and Jane/11 in the truck, going to what was most likely a last stand, going to shut the gate. The two of them coming clear on where they were and what was going on, and Hopper finally coming to the realization that the reason he's so afraid to lose Elle is because he lost his daughter, and Elle coming to the realization that this is what family means and this is how you stand. I mean, like, there should be some Emmys handed out for this, and there should be some, I don't know, just some massive awards heaped on the filming, the writing, the acting, all of it, because it was pretty close to perfect. It actually brought a tear to my eye, seeing it. And it did it in such a slow, subtle way. It just was the perfect climax to their relationship. Even while everything else was going on, and there was a lot going on in this episode. Little moments. Lots of things that add up. And another great one was the final revelation of what's going on between good old brother and Max, and the way that was ended. And is it just me, or is this show full of badass female characters? Even now, thanks to what Max did, she's going to help them make a diversion so that they can fight the Demo Dogs. Then again, maybe it's just badass characters, because let's remember Bob the hero again. And of course, a knockdown, drag-out fight, one that totally incorporated every member of the main cast. Because every step of the way, they had to help each other. They had to free Will, they had to distract the Demo Dogs, they needed to worry about the fact that one of the Demo Dogs liked them and used that as the thing, and of course, Elle had to shut the portal. The only thing that was missing in that moment was watching as this creature died. And of course, the reason why is, as we saw in the last few seconds, it didn't. The Upside Down is still a place full of threats, and since we've already been told that there are 2 more seasons coming, we know things are going to heat up once again. But alright. Overall, this season was badass. And it even gave us a really great little epilogue. The dance. The one night out. Now, before we actually talk about that, I do like the fact that the Doc and Hopper had that whole conversation, and pretty much he's being found a way to allow for Elle to have somewhat of a normal life. Jane, and you just get used to calling her Jane. But at the same time, the dance kind of was bittersweet for me. As I watched that, yeah, the love connection got made for a couple of the characters, for the most part, there were also some sad moments. You have to remember that the entire end was them having fun for a moment. But remember how this season began, even before all the supernatural shit started. There is no 100% going back. The PTSD is there. The fatigue is there. And we see that with the mom and Hopper. It doesn't really get easier, but you get better at handling it. I like that better than the way they said it. I could probably do a whole theory video just on the psychology of this show, but this episode was a platinum. Best of the best. Almost perfect. Overall, the season was a gold. There were a few things that I would say would make room for a good, the bad, and the ugly in it. And maybe I'll do another follow-up video if I get thumbs up on this one. But for now, I'm going to let this sink in. Let all the psychological stuff play around in my head for a few minutes. What about you? What did you think of Stranger Things Season 2? And what is it you'd like to see moving forward from it? And of course, if you've liked this, do me a favor and hit one of those thumbs up for me, and share this post on Facebook and Twitter. And if this is your first time here, click that subscribe button to join our little community. What I'm doing is trying to build and find a way to talk about the hows and the whys of stories. And this one, Stranger Things, I think is a perfect example of one that will echo through the generations. I think this is one of those stories that we need to examine. But for now, I hope that you have a good night, a happy Halloween, and thank you for walking with us through the heart of the stories we tell.